over to you.
So as Dave said, I am Diane. I'm a retired nurse practitioner. I was in practice as an RN for about 30 years and then went back to school, became a nurse practitioner, did family practice. I did a hospice care and of life care, and then retired about the time COVID hit, and then was introduced to Sue Pomerantz, who owns the company Concepts for Living that I work for. And what we do is assist seniors and their family members find communities. And I say communities and not facilities, because facilities are medically driven. Communities are what are referred to independent living homes, assisted living, memory care, and boarding care. So I'm going to go through what each of them are and what they mean, etc. And we're also going to touch on a little bit of the difference between home health and home care, because they're two different concepts in case you need one of those. What generally happens is I deal more with the seniors' children than the actual senior themselves, for whatever reason. Either they're too sick, or there may be some dementia involved where they can't make decisions, or they're not willing to make decisions. There are multiple reasons why families feel like their parents, aunts, uncles, guardians, conservators, whoever, feel like they can't live at home alone anymore. And Dave and I were talking about some programs that the village is working on, and one of them is a visitor program where we're going to be training people to go into people's homes and, have tea, coffee, play checkers, whatever, but to also kind of look around and, make sure the person's safe. And if there's a concern, bring it back to us that maybe we can do a further assessment, because there are a lot of people that are living alone out there that shouldn't be. Hoarders, big problem in the senior community. Lack of ability to get food, medicine, go to the doctor, etc. So that's what I'm going to talk about. My first question is, do you all understand how assisted livings and how those communities work? Have you been to any? Yes. Okay. So what happens is when you decide that it's time to transition out of your own home, hopefully it's at your time that you make that decision and nobody's making that decision for you. It's best to go through a placement advisor. And the reason why is we have visited, and I say we for all the placement advisors, because there are many, especially in this area, that have visited every community that's in the area. We know the marketing directors, the sales directors, the layout of the communities, the types of communities they are, activities, etc. So the first thing we do when we meet someone is do an assessment, and that is health issues that you may have. What kind of environment do you want to be in? Some of the communities they look like hotels, very high end. Some of them are more home-like, and if you don't want to, have to ride for an elevator for 4 floors and walk down, a hallway, a high-end place may not be the best for you. We determine what you may need in the future, because the goal is to have people move into one community and stay there. They're continuing care communities where they have independent living, which is where you have your own apartment. You can have meals in the dining room of the assisted living part. Laundry service once a week. If you need medication management, which is one of the big reasons why people have to move. Medicine in older people becomes a problem really fast. Especially the older we get, the more medicine you're on. Most of the time, Dr. Smith doesn't know what Dr. Jones has prescribed, and our seniors are really being over-medicated. And it's important to be in a place that can manage that and have someone look at your medicines and make sure that they're all compatible. Even just the simplest, just lost my train of thought. The problem is falls. You know, people are taking the wrong medicine or taking medicines that don't mix well together. That can cause a fall, that can cause a fractured hip, that can cause a hospitalization. Then it's downhill the rest of the way. So assisted livings do medical management. I'm sorry, medicine management, where they will bring you your pills. They will refill them, make sure that doctors all know what everybody's taking, so nothing is, excuse me, contraindicated. There's multiple activities in independent living. You can participate in all the activities, but you're still independent. You can drive, you can come and go as you please. You can get as much service as you need, but your living is on the campus of the assisted living, but not a part of it. One of the biggest issues that turns people off from assisted living is seeing people with walkers and wheelchairs and canes. And I had a 99-year-old grandfather who lived alone after my grandmother died, and my parents were going to Panama. So my mother convinced, and this was way before I did this, and she convinced him to move into an assisted living for the time that they were gone, because she didn't want him alone. He lived in Laguna Beach. So I was at work and I got a call, and it was him. And I don't even think the plane had left the tarmac. He said, "You come and get me, or I'm calling a cab and going home." Okay, Gramps, I'll be right there. Brought him home. Didn't like the walkers, didn't like the wheelchairs, didn't like the old people. Grandpa, you're old too. But that was okay. So independent living, any questions? Okay, so did you have a question? You moved your mouth.
No, I was just thinking it's usually, they usually have services.
Yes.
I mean, they take care of the housekeeping.
Right.
They
They'll
take care of your meals.
right.
Unless you want to fix something for yourself.
Right. They come with, they have kitchenettes, so you can do a little bit of cooking, but you have to go to the main dining room. It's not like they'll bring everything to
Basically,
you.
people move into those places, they're just tired of meal
Prep,
planning,
don't want to deal with,
prep,
like, I want to
cleaning the
move
house.
tomorrow. Meal prep, shopping, just the day-to-day taking care of a house. We all know what a drag it can be.
But the preparation of medicine
Yes,
is viewed as an independent living function, not an assisted living.
it depends on the person, if they're able to do it themselves, and the health center, because every community has a health center, is aware of what the person is taking and can monitor it, then they can do it themselves. If they need help, they can
All these
assist.
things come with a price, that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, it's an add-on.
It's an
It's
add-on,
an add-on.
yeah, well, right. So there's a flat fee for moving into any of these communities. You have an application fee, which is varied, and you have a community fee, which is a one-time fee that's usually can be applied to the first month's rent. It depends on the individual community. And what that goes to is the processing of your application. Everybody who moved, all right, so we're done with independent living, right? So now we're going into assisted living. Why would you need assisted living? You may be,
Medication,
I'm sorry?
the medication.
You need help with your medication. You had a hip replacement and it didn't heal right. You're having trouble walking. And you live in a 2-story house and you just can't take care of it anymore. Maybe you've got a little bit of cognitive problems, not quite dementia, but still a little bit of memory problems. Or you're just at a point where you're not safe to be home alone.
What could possibly happen, say if the two of us go into independent living
Uh-huh,
and one of us all of a sudden needs assisted living?
okay.
What happens then?
Let me
Can
stop
you
just
move
for a second.
together?
And just point out, we're recording this, this and if the voice coming up from here, us, doesn't hit this microphone, it's gonna be. off.
Okay,
Yeah,
So
these
so-
are the questions.
okay,
repeat,
so the
please.
question was, we have a lovely couple here that's asking if one person is in independent living and then something happens to the other person and they need to go to assisted living, what happens? The person that needs to go into assisted living can go, and then the other person who's in independent living can either stay in assisted living or be a +1 in assisted living, which means they wouldn't get any of the services of assisted living. You can get a 2-bedroom a 1-bedroom apartment in assisted living, and the other person would just be there and not, if they were healthy, they didn't need any medication management, no help needed with bathing or toileting or eating or any of that stuff.
So they would help you move.
Oh, absolutely.
It would
Again,
double the cost.
Yeah, and actually, a lot of the newer places or a lot of the existing places are now starting to just do add-ons.
Right,
So you can
exactly,
stay
'cause
where
they're-
you are,
right.
independent living, and they just add on services on your bill
I see.
and provide them for you.
yeah, you pay a flat fee rent for meals in the room. The add-ons that Wayne is talking about is when you move into these communities, regardless of the level, everybody's assessed by a registered nurse. And they assess what needs you might need, and then those are given points. So if you need medicine management, that's 1 point. If you need help bathing or showering, and it takes a half hour, that's another point. If it takes 2 people in an hour to bathe you or get you in and out of the shower, that may be another point. If you need help going to the bathroom, if you're incontinent, those are extra points that are added on. So that's where the price does go up, depending upon the services that you need. Yes,
And none of this is covered by Medicare.
absolutely not.
Okay.
Medicare barely covers what we all need regardless.
Okay.
No, these services are not covered by Medicare. Medi-Cal does have a program, but it's incredibly complicated. And briefly, the community has to accept it. It's called the Assisted Waiver Program. And the person has to already be on Medi-Cal before they apply. The community has to accept it. And what Medi-Cal does, they send a person out to assess the person that's requesting the assistance. And they will decide how much they're going to assist. They don't cover the entire cost. And then there's like a 2-year waiting list.
Oh, wow.
You have to be poor.
And you have to be poor,
Oh,
no assets.
We're all poor.
Excuse me.
Well, they have very strict criteria.
Yes.
It's not very much. Although they have liberalized it, we turned it off.
And even if your income, I mean, if you get an extra $10, it's evaluated every month. So you can
Oh.
get it 1 month and lose it the next and have to reapply. So it's, we deal with very few communities that take it.
So you have to use your own money.
Yes.
Okay.
So the communities are private pay, long-term insurance will take it, will cover it.
This use of the term point, is that universally accepted? Is that everybody, all the places, the communities use that terminology?
Yeah, which terminology?
Points,
Points, levels, it's called levels.
oh, level.
Yes, some have 1 to 4. Memory care units, which we'll get to, can have up to 8.
Then I misunderstood you. I thought the points were something,
It's not
Determined.
universal, it's not universal.
okay, it's not, I should,
Each place has their own system,
yeah, that's what it's.
But it's basically the same concept.
you know.
So is there a fee for what you do?
They don't want you to move.
That's a very good question.
Repeat it, please.
Yes, I will. Marcia asked if there's a fee for what placement advisors do, and the answer is no. We get paid when you get placed, or when a move-in is done. So for example, I can work with a family for weeks, take them to 10 or 12 communities, and if they decide they don't like any of them and say, we've decided to keep mom at home, thank you very much for your help, that's time I don't get back. So that is the standard of practice in the community. So
The
it's
places that they move into it,
pay us, yes, we get
Aw.
75%, yeah. Well, yeah, it's a commission. Finder's fee is kind of crude, don't you think? Hey, you wanna move into it? Got a checkbook? And as long as we're talking about, moving things, they will review finances. So some communities request tax returns, bank statements, because they want to know, hello, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, sir, how are you?
Doing well, doing well.
Come sit in front.
Oh,
They want to know that you can stay there. And it takes the stress off of you, and it takes stress off of the community. Some people do have to move out of communities if it gets too expensive. Communities also like to run seasonal specials where they'll give you a discount on room and board for maybe the first 2 or 3 months or 6 months, but then every year their price goes up just like everything else.
They're in business.
They're in business, and they provide a tremendous amount of service. They provide a lot of people with jobs, and they have standards. All the communities we deal with are licensed by the state of California. They get inspected. They got inspected quite frequently during COVID. And if they were out of compliance, they were fined. The COVID restrictions were crazy. We couldn't go in and tour. They wouldn't let anybody come in. Family members weren't allowed to come in, if you were lucky enough to have a room.
Yeah.
So it was really tough, because we all know that isolation is very difficult for seniors. And a lot of people in the assisted living that are quite a bit older than the folks here don't have anybody. And they just have the staff. That's their family. And one of the things as a placement advisor I look for in a community is, what's your staff turnover? And when they tell me that someone's been there for 17, 18 years, that tells me it's a good place to work. They take good care of the residents. They're not patients, they're residents. Everything is non-medical. Excuse me. And that was one of the transitions I had to make from nursing to business.
You find that many of these, or most of them, are understaffed?
No. Not at
That's a
all.
big concern, I guess, nationwide now.
Well, what we're hearing nationwide now is skilled nursing facilities that used to be known as convalescent hospitals. And back in the day, when you needed to, say you had an operation, you broke a hip and you couldn't go home. So you went to a nursing home
Yeah,
for physical therapy and to be taken care of. Well, those nursing homes have transitioned to rehabilitation facilities. So Medicare pays for 100 days for you to rehab, and then you go home. Now, some people can't, don't really get to that point, and then they end up in assisted living, where they get the help that they need, but not in that environment. What's happening is in these rehabs, and they do have parts of them that are considered skilled nursing facilities. That used to be convalescent hospitals. They do have patients that are, it's a horrible term, I've hated it since I learned it. It's called custodial care. And that's for people that haven't been able to be rehabilitated for whatever reason. They have no place to go. They're on Medicare and Medi-Cal, and they're just there. And a lot of this happened, and there's a lot of their psych patients that end up in these facilities. I don't know if you remember when Reagan closed down all the state hospitals, but all these people ended up in nursing homes. That's how I got started in nursing. My dad owned nursing homes. So, they end up staying there. So it's not, now they're looking and saying, okay, and the previous law was there had to be an RN on staff 8 hours a day. And that was usually during the day. And then the rest of the time they could have licensed vocational nurses and of course nurses aides. Well, now I guess Congress or Biden or somebody saying, no, there needs to be an RN there 24 hours a day, which I agree with 100%. Are they going to be able to do that? I don't know, because they're going to have to pay them a lot of money. That there's a big nursing shortage. I mean, I could give a whole nother lecture on the nursing shortage. Nurses are aging out. It's tough work. It's destroyed my body. It's crazy. So that's where that's coming from. It's those facilities that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with some.
Right. So the communities that we're talking about do have nurses on staff, but not 24 hours. They have med techs that pass out the medicines. So you move into assisted living. They do an evaluation, determine what you need. You go and you look at the places, hopefully before you need to go. Otherwise, the family goes. Usually like last weekend, what I did was I took a brother and sister out, and we looked at 3 communities, and they wanted to see them before they showed them to their mom.
How well are these places equipped? Say someone gets a heart attack in the middle of the night.
Okay, the question was, what happens if somebody has a heart attack in the middle of the night? If they are able, each room has an emergency call light, and there's emergency call lights in the bathroom. So they pull that, attendant comes in, sees what's happening, and they call 911.
I see. So there's no in-house staff.
No.
Usually they give CPR training.
Oh,
Staff,
yeah.
but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, they will certainly start CPR, but they will still call they will call 911 if someone falls. It's a requirement.
Do you have any printed material of different places, or we come to you and you take us to different places? Do you have anything that we could look at and say, no, I don't want to go here. I don't wanna go
Usually
here."
what I will do if people are looking is start out by referring you to look at the websites and get an idea of what the,
Because I found when I looked at some of the websites, they're really, some will go into something and others won't go
Right.
into anything.
right, the question was, do I have any material on specific communities? I do at home, I have a drawer full of brochures. So if you were interested, we would meet and go over the brochures. But I don't have ones to pass out.
So we would make an appointment with you
Exactly,
and start from there.
yeah,
And you could, okay.
yes. So when you move into assisted living, where are we now? So we know that Medicare doesn't pay for it. All the services, activities, meals, everything is taken care of. The communities do have their own doctors that come in at least every month. It'll be a doctor or a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant to see residents that need to be seen, make medication changes as needed. Any special services, they provide transportation, a lot of outside activities, especially in this area with all the museums, and go to the movies, go out for lunch, lots of stuff to do. They encourage people to participate in the activities. If you are sitting in your room, they're gonna come knock on the door and say, come on, Marcia, we got a game going on, let's go. The whole goal is to keep you engaged in the community. They have a resident committee that meets with the administrators, with the chef, to discuss problems, things that they want, and they listen because this is your home. They're working for you. 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, they're pretty good living size. It's not like you're gonna move your whole house into the assisted living. And there are companies that will help you come to your house, evaluate what you can take, what you should take, etc., and move it in, because all the apartments are unfurnished. They're staged when we do tours, but when you're ready to move in, when you pick out the floor plan you want, you bring your own furniture. Pets are encouraged, but only if you can take care of them. There is a service, there's a young woman that started a great service. She's got a couple people working for her called Pet Porters, and she goes to people's homes and to the assisted livings and takes care of some animals that people can't take care of. Yeah, people need, and a lot of the communities have community dogs that are just walking around. Lucy would be great.
Yeah.
I would have brought her today, but I didn't know who was going to be. Lucy's my lab, and she likes to come visit, but she gets very protective. So, a lot of people just, they hear the word assisted living and their mind just goes, oh my God, this is the end. This is where I go to die. And they're really designed not for you to have those feelings, that it's a transition. It's another chapter in our lives. And if it's not safe for you to be at home, and I'm not saying that everything is 100% perfect. That one family I was talking about where we went to multiple communities and they found something wrong with everything. with every place, there was something wrong. And I will tell you, as a placement advisor, you're not gonna be 100% happy with everything. It's not your own home yet. When you move in and get settled, that starts to feel like home. Usually they'll assign an ambassador, another resident, to spend time with you, have meals with you. They have dining, restaurant-like seating, so you can sit anywhere, and encourage you to become engaged and meet people with similar interests. And younger people are moving into the communities because they're thinking, they add up the amount of money they spend every month to maintain a house. And kind of comes out a little bit the same. In some of these communities, I wouldn't mind living in at this point.
Get your reservation.
Seriously, I mean, the food is good. I've eaten at most of them and it's not bad. Menus change every day. There's food available 24 hours a day.
Yeah, if you don't mind living with,
Old-
people that are older.
Yes, well,
Jeff's parents had lived in a place, a nice place, and this couple in their 50s moved in.
Yeah.
And everyone said, "What are you doing here? You look healthy and able." They said they just wanted the service, and they were too busy in their regular lives to be dealing with maintenance and cleaning, and meal prep, and all that other stuff. And they figured, I guess, they added up what it would cost to hire people to do those things, plus maintain the house, plus, all the other stuff that's associated with it. And they decided, let's just move into a fancy assisted living place.
there you go.
Like the people who go on cruise ships.
Yeah, they
There are.
live in them.
Yeah, yeah, and a few people do it.
Or you can retire at a Holiday Inn, extended stay, it would be cheaper. Costs of moving into an assisted living can be anywhere between $6,000 and $10,000 a month. And that includes the levels of care that you might need that may change over time. Any questions about assisted living? Yes, sir.
Does skilled nursing fall in here somewhere?
No, we do not deal with skilled nursing because skilled nursing is medically driven. All of this is non-medical. And I'm going to talk about home care and home health. So skilled nursing is, you go into skilled nursing from an acute care hospital.
Usually it's involuntary. Nobody chooses to go to it.
Right, right.
What did you just say about skilled nursing?
Nobody chooses.
I know, no, before that, I said,
Oh, it's involuntary. Usually end up there as part of your medical care.
Right. Again, you're recovering from a surgery.
but
And skilled nursing again is rehab.
involuntary, very good.
Some of your places are voluntary.
Yeah,
Yes,
got it.
I volunteer to move into Villa.
Unless your kids force. Yeah.
Yes. And there's a lot of times where, I get calls from kids that say, my mom needs to move, but she won't. Do you have power of attorney? No, well, sorry, not a lot you can do. So, yeah, so a lot of everything that I've kind of spoken about is in this, and you can read through it if you have any more questions. And my number, I didn't bring any cards, but my number's at the end. Thank you for that.
What's your experience with entry fees? I mean, friends of ours took us to Montecito,
Uh-huh.
and there it was $1 million up front to get in.
Okay, Montecito is a community, it's a buy-in community where I don't really know how to explain how that, please help me,
I
Wayne.
went to another facility and looked at it up in Northern California, which I think operates on the same principle. they had two levels of entry.
There you
One was
go.
You pay $1 million. Now you get most of that back after you leave or die, so it's not gone.
One way or the other.
You have to have it to start with.
Then the lower amount, which is considerably lower, a couple $100,000, that you lose entirely after over a couple of years. But your monthly expenses are higher. So you can move in for a lower down payment and higher monthly expenses, or you can pay the $1 million, which mostly you get back at the end. And that guarantees a lower monthly rate. That's why what they do, but a lot of places have all these different systems.
There are very different systems, and when it comes to those communities, I let the communities explain it because they know how to explain it better than I do.
Well, it comes down to finance, of course.
Of course, everything does.
And presumably if you have a choice, which a lot of people don't have that choice, but if you do, then you look at what your portfolio is worth and making for you. And frankly, the $1 million has a value of an interest rate.
Right.
And you're looking at, they're gonna take it from me and use that money to get it, or shall I use it?
Right.
It's a trade-off of what your portfolio is worth, really.
So I'm not gonna deny that they aren't costly. And
But we didn't like it anyway, so.
exactly. I mean, obviously, people want to stay in their own homes, and one of the goals of the village, of course, is to have people stay in their own homes, and we're working to help support that, but not everybody can. So there are options available. One of the projects we're working on is, in addition to the visitor program, is a program called Ready or Not, where we're going to be encouraging the villagers, if you will, to put together a notebook of all your contact information, medical information, how to run your house if you can't run it, your electrician, where you pick up your prescriptions, your eye doctor, your vet. It's very, very extensive. So we're working on keeping people as independent as possible. But sometimes things happen and you just can't. So we do have some options. There are calls that I get where people just say, I don't have the money. And there are lower cost communities, and I refer them out to Jewish Family Services and Helping Hands to help them find additional communities if I can't help them.
So you can go around, and I had one lady in her 90s who, her whole social life was going to all the events she got invited to at all the facilities, so we had her looked at. Because they kept inviting her back to attend the parties.
There you go.
Trying to lure her into the facility, but she and her boyfriend used that as a way to go out and have a social.
Yeah, yeah, great.
After going, her boyfriend.
The communities, and I imagine it's the same in the San Fernando Valley, but here they spend a lot of money wooing the community. And business is slow right now. I haven't placed anybody all year, and it's already September.
It's not, the waiting list, at least the one place I visited recently is a year. There's nothing available within a year.
Where'd you go?
Westminster, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Westminster Gardens, very nice place.
Yeah.
And you went without me?
I knew that was something.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, and that's the problem. And when I finish with memory care, then I'll talk about why it's important to go with a placement advisor, me or somebody else. So any questions about assisted living? Okay, so memory care, that's a big one. Memory care is for people with dementia. Doesn't matter what kind of dementia it is, there's several different forms of dementia, but people with dementia, cognitive impairment that need special attention. And when I have a client that is just starting to have some memory issues and know that somewhere down the line they are going to need memory care, I will look for a community that has memory care, and most of them do. They're separate units within the community. So the person doesn't have to move to the family, and the person don't have to go through this twice, because it's pretty traumatic. That way they know the community, the family knows the people, it makes it easier. And I would say 98% of these communities have memory care. And there are a couple of them, that's all they do is memory care. So memory care is for people with dementia or any type of cognitive disorder where they clearly are not safe to be alone and need to have not only their medication managed, they need help eating. There's probably incontinency involved, wandering behavior. There may be some aggressive behavior. You want to stand up and stretch?
No.
Okay, feel free. Any reason that you could possibly imagine that they wouldn't be safe to live alone. The ratio of staff is higher. And they all have secure. They are very secure. You can't get in and you can't get out. Silverado is one of the main communities for memory care, and they take everybody from the beginning of dementia to end stage. And the difference with them is their community looks like, if you looked out the window, where it's all open, obviously there's a fence, and residents can just walk around outside all they want. Memory care units in some of the higher end areas are within the building, maybe on the 3rd or 4th floor. So you feel like they're locked in. Am I getting my point across? Okay. So when I do my assessment, because usually I'm talking to the family about what they think their mom would like, and or dad or whoever, and whether or not they're ambulatory, and whether or not they would feel more comfortable being able to just open the door and walk outside, or have progressed to the point where they're in a locked unit. I know it's not fun to think about, where they don't really know.
They get agitated if they have to go out.
Exactly, like I do sometimes. It's crazy. You don't want to go out there. You're better off. So the memory cares are usually a little bit more expensive. They have a higher level of points, like we talked about, because there's more care involved. My name's Diane. Wow, nice to meet you. There's more care involved, and you have to pay more people to take care of the people. They have usually single rooms, sometimes shared rooms, but the residents are always out of their rooms. Again, you're not paying for them to just lay in bed all day and be forgetful. They are engaged in significant projects, and they all have their own brand, if you will, of memory care. For example, Silverado has a Nexus program, and they have different levels of how they deal with issues. They don't use medication to control people. If there's someone who's agitated or misbehaving or just not cooperating, they're redirected. They're not just like drugged and put to bed like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So you get a lot of service and that's what you're paying for. They have to be fed sometimes, taken to the bathroom, et cetera, et cetera. And they do offer end of life care. And they do allow hospice to come in and provide care, and that's a higher level of care than in a hospital. And they have psychiatrists that manage the medicines, and from the memory cares that I've seen in this area, they're all very, very nice. And you don't feel like you're in a psychiatric hospital, if you will. A ward, yes. We're going to the ward now, and they do get outside. I mean, they do have some activities. They have activities all day long. And there are patio areas, so they do get the outside. It's just not like walking out the door and they're gone. So again, we do an assessment, and they come out and we'll do an assessment and decide if they're appropriate or not. Hopefully, God forbid, none of us will need that. And they have 24-hour supervision. What else?
Medicare doesn't pay for it.
And that, oh yeah, well, I like this because people, you'd be surprised, Wayne. People call me and go, well, I've got Medicare, so I'm all right. I said, I have to put the phone down. No, you're not. Medicare doesn't pay for any of this. Yes.
Long-term care, however,
Long-term care does. The question was, does long-term care pay for memory care? Yes, it does. I don't know how much long-term care pays. I guess it's what you've paid in.
tremendously, but the point is that there's some amount.
There is some amount.
In a regular nursing.
Nursing home, yeah, they'd end up being in a skilled nursing facility on
You go to a-
custodial care.
You become one of those custodial patients.
It's horrible.
3 other people.
I
Exactly.
mean, that's all it covers. That's your point. Okay.
Back in the days when we used to tie people up in their beds, but we can't do that anymore. The other option, okay, any questions about memory care that you can remember?
Oh, dear. It's memory humor.
I know, I swear, I can't remember things, it's crazy. So, have you heard of board and care homes? I know you have. My star student, I know.
Board of care.
Board and care homes is another option. So we talked about independent living, assisted living, memory care. Board and care homes are residential homes that have been bought by people and redesigned, and maybe 4, 5, 6 bedrooms added, 2 or 3 bathrooms, a huge kitchen, a community area, a dining area, and it's a home. And they are considerably less, though their prices are going up too. I don't know if it's staffing or food or what the deal is, but they are for people, mostly I've seen dementia people that are kind of past the point of being able to take advantage or appreciate the activities that the higher end memory care units have. So they live in this home, they have 24-hour caregivers, the caregivers sleep on the premises. They get fed, they get kept clean, dry, they have some activities. They usually have music or TV on. Sometimes there's a dog, outside area where family can come and visit. And it's like living at home. And I would say at least 80% of the residents that are in the board and cares don't really know where they are. But they're being well taken care of. They can live there for years. They also can transition to hospice when the time comes. they have what they call hospice waivers. That's one of the things that we assess when we go look at board and cares, because I will never send anybody to a place I haven't looked at. They have been less expensive than the higher end because the costs are a little bit less. But some of them now are doing the levels of care, and some are all inclusive. And the biggest expense in the board and cares is incontinence care. I mean, if we would have known
That's when.
disposable diapers as
I used to
adults,
Tell families that that's the breaking point. I want
It
to keep
is.
my mother home forever because I promised her. But then as soon as she becomes incontinent, that's where the family draws the line.
exactly. The comment was about having a family member that's incontinent, and yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So the place, and we still refer to the board and cares as communities because they are little communities. And again, I ask about the turnover. The majority of the areas, they're either Filipino. We're seeing a lot of Armenian homes opening up, which is quite unusual because that culture usually takes care of their elders at home. But I think in this era and what's happening, people can't afford to stay home and take care of grandma anymore, or mom, or whoever. It's too much. And those homes are good because then the people get the food they're used to. They hear the language, the smells, it feels like home. So yes, Miss Katie.
Diane, are you seeing more beds open at boarding cares? Are there more boarding cares opening?
Yes, there are more boarding cares opening. The tricky part about that is I've gotten calls about boarding cares where they call and say we're open and they don't have any residents. They're trying to fill them up. So it's hard to convince a family, well, this would be a great place, but there's nobody else there but the staff. So kind of got to wait till they get somebody in before they want to move their relatives in and give us a chance to see how well they do. There's one gentleman that owns like 6 homes in the Pasadena, Altadena area, and they're beautifully run homes. He has cameras all over the place. He checks on them every day. The caregivers keep a log of how much people eat, when they have bowel movements, when they get their baths, all their medicines, everything's locked up. And these homes are also inspected just like the assisted living communities are as well. And they have to be licensed.
Is this a sixer also, that's the terminology?
I'm sorry?
The term sixer,
Sixer.
what I associated with it.
Right, 6 beds.
Oh, okay. I've seen them.
Can't have more than 6 beds in a residence. I thought that was.
Right.
also a board, another term for it.
Right, unless they're licensed for more.
Oh,
Yeah, it's whatever your license says you can have. I don't think I've seen more than 6.
yeah, so I thought that was one.
I think after that, it's up to 100 or something, but that's
Oh,
a
that's
whole
a-
different level of supervision,
Right,
rules and regulations. It's a lot more expensive.
yes, and there are a lot of rules and regulations in place for all these communities. And I think the boarding cares, they look even more carefully at than the larger assisted living and memory care units, the bigger places, which are mostly, well, they're all corporate owned. So any questions?
I used to be able to get people in for a lot less money than what they're charging.
Yes,
Now people with fixed incomes like 12, 15, 1,700 a month, they can't move into those places.
they can't. And you wouldn't want to live in a place that it only costs $1,500 a month to live in.
I know, that's when people brag about how they're gonna get eligible for Medi-Cal. And I
Good
said,
luck.
You know, you need to look hard at what's available if you only have Medi-Cal. Because if you want Granny to be well taken care of, you don't want her to take all her assets and make her eligible for Medi-Cal.
Right.
Because then she'll be stuck someplace that she hates and that you hate and isn't very good.
Yes, Katie,
Diane, is your company seeing most the clients, really the adult children?
Yes.
Or the seniors themselves, really?
mostly the adult children, and it was interesting when I was interviewing, when I came and I spoke with Sue. And she was surprised that I really didn't have interaction with the actual client,
Yeah.
that I was dealing more with the children.
So they're sandwich generation.
Yes, yes. I've dealt with some clients that have been none too pleasant and have been very, very difficult, where I've actually had to say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You're just, I mean, this woman was screaming at me in my car.
So dear.
So it can be very challenging. But I like it. So real quickly, I put in options for staying at home. If you do need assistance and you don't want to move, you can have home care. Does anybody know the difference between home care and home health? Wait. Ah. Are you gonna get a star on your next to your name today?
Great. Do I get to skip a grade?
Yes, yes. Why don't you explain to the class the difference without reading what I
I
wrote?
used to do this when I worked.
I
I
know,
would think home health, Medicare covered home health was going to solve all their problems.
exactly.
And I said, no, Medicare will send out a nurse or a physical therapist or an occupational therapist or a speech therapist only when the doctor orders it, and it's a very limited number of visits. They'll come out, they'll do what they have to do and then leave.
And that's home health,
That's home health.
correct.
That's provided by Medicare. Medicare makes the rules about how many visits, how long the visits can be, and always has to be ordered by a doctor.
Right,
So that's not gonna solve anybody's problem if they need somebody there all the time. to take care of
right.
them.
It's not a
So,
long-term solution.
No. it's
no,
not.
so home health are agencies that provide home health aides to come and do anything that isn't medical. So they can go to the market with you. They can do light housekeeping. Help you with bathing. Cooking.
They can do physical therapy.
No, that's home, that's-
These are just aids that come out.
right. They do anything that isn't medical. Physical therapy is a medical treatment that has to be ordered by a physician. So, or a nurse practitioner or a PA.
Home care,
Physician's
you're just
assistant.
calling and ordering aids to come in.
Right, home
They
health,
certainly come out.
home care, I'm sorry, is when you call an agency and you say, you know what? My mom's home, she needs a little bit of help. Can somebody come for 4 hours a day? Help her prepare breakfast, make sure there's gonna be a meal for dinner, straighten up the house, help her take a bath, get her dressed. Otherwise, she's fine on her own. So you can have that for 4 hours a day, you can have it for 24 hours a day. If you need that type of attention. Anything that's non-medical. They cannot give medicine. They can tell you, Marcia, it's 2 o'clock, it's time to take your pills. So if the family sets up the pills, they can say, okay, Marcia, time to take your pills, pour it in a cup, but they can't take the pills out of the bottle and give it to you. And And that can work for some people for a short period of time, but it can also become very expensive. And people will say, oh, I'm gonna hire the guy my friend used, or I'm gonna hire the cousin of the guy that my friend used. And we really don't like to hire home health aides to come into the home that don't work for an agency. When you go to work for a home health agency, home care agency, I'm confusing myself. You get tested, you have to be insured, car insurance, etc. Background check, drug testing, and they're bonded and insured. Plus, if your aide Mary is sick and doesn't show up, the company has to replace her. If the cousin gets sick and doesn't show up, you could be on the floor for days. So that's, if you've had surgery and you want to go home, so you hire somebody to come in for a few hours, help you do things.
It used to be around $25 to $30.
Yeah, it's gone up. It's gone up.
Are you saying that's Medicare assisted?
No,
No, that's just private care that you hire on your own.
Oh, okay.
yeah. Home care is private pay. So that's about it. Yes,
What is the main difference, home care and home health?
home health is medically driven,
Okay.
which means you have to have a doctor write an order. When I had my knee replacement, the doctor ordered home health. So a nurse came, did an assessment, a physical therapist came.
Okay, if I look at this, and I'm only interested in the issue of long-term care,
Okay,
and therefore we're considering from the beginning here assisted care versus. Okay, now we're down to the point of saying, well, I don't want to go to any of these places, I want to stay at home.
okay.
Do I necessarily have to have healthcare?
Well, no, not at all. If you need healthcare, when you say healthcare, what do you define that?
That's what I'm asking.
Oh,
I
what,
know what you need.
what goes into healthcare?
You have to pay for anything that comes.
All right, let's put it another way. I'm looking at an independent.
Independent living,
With some add-ons for like medicine.
right,
But now I've decided, no, I'm not gonna go to that place. I'm gonna stay at home.
okay.
And now what kind of care do I need long-term?
It depends what your
Obviously something
condition,
I'm gonna pay for, I know that.
yeah,
Maybe have to change.
right, it changes as you change. You stay healthy and you don't need any help with,
Usually it starts with
Thank you.
hospitalized, and then they discharge you home and they say you can't leave home. without it. You need to have somebody.
It's a semantics question, and so what I'm looking for, I think, is home care,
correct.
but long-term,
You can have that,
and it may become too expensive.
It could
Yes,
last.
it will.
To the point that I don't really need, I shouldn't use that.
Well, it's sometimes more expensive than moving into a.
That's my point.
facility.
Yeah,
right, community,
If you need it 24 hours a day where you have live-in
Yeah,
care,
that's too
it
expensive.
gets made very expensive.
and live-in is a whole other. I didn't even put that in,
Yeah, I would tell my patients if they were to have round-the-clock care, I'd say, you're spending this much on your round-the-clock care. You can move into a really nice place and get the same level of care for less money.
and some people do call and say, we have 24-hour care now and we can't afford it, so we
Yeah.
want to move. And then they find out how much it costs to move. It's like, yikes. Yes,
What geographic region are you most familiar with? Is it Pasadena or Los Angeles or?
My geriatric, my geographic area is the East Valley. So anywhere from North Hollywood, Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena, Arcadia, Los Angeles. We were kind of looking at Claremont in that area and it was just too far. And there's placement advisors out there, so, but mostly Pasadena.
Good to know.
Good to know.
So you're familiar with all the places in that area.
Yeah, sometimes takes me a while to remember which place goes where, and the salespeople move around a lot, so it gets confusing.
Oh,
You get to know somebody at one facility.
Yeah, so none of that, I know, yes.
So they gaslight you.
no, no.
Yes, look at it, what are you doing here? Yes,
I know there's a lot of movement around, with people. You get to know a small pool of people. And that's it. They just move around.
they do, and and I used to belong to a couple of professional organizations in Pasadena, and it was the same people, and they all referred to the same people. I didn't get one referral out of any of them. I said, why am I wasting my time and my money going? So this is a tough area. There are a lot of people doing this.
Well, another one doing it is the home itself. I remember that was a comment they made to me at Westminster,
Uh-huh.
was that moving there under any circumstances, and in any level, includes the move, the company that comes out and evaluates your furniture and all that stuff. That's provided.
They provide that?
Yeah,
Whoa.
that's what they said.
Well, that's nice that they pay for it. Cause that's
Well,
not,
you're paying for it, obviously.
Oh, you're.
yeah, you're paying, we don't do that.
Some places don't do that.
And there are placement advisors that do it all. They find the place, they pack up your house and they move you.
And it's important to decide what you're bringing and not bringing. I had one couple who were selling their house, and it was a big house. And they were moving into assisted living, a 1-bedroom apartment. And they moved so much furniture over to this 1-bedroom apartment, that you literally couldn't move. It was like
Yes,
trying to get between furniture.
Mhm.
They eventually had to get stuck.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say goodbye to the piano.
yes, yes.
No, I told them we could serve on it, we could still use it as a
You could
dining room
sleep on
table.
it, yeah, but I haven't seen any rooms big enough,
I don't
but
think so.
they're good size. The only thing I would say that I found I was unhappy with is there isn't a lot of closet space.
Yeah, so.
The new place has got lots of closets.
The
new
bathrooms are
place-
huge.
Well, they have to be wheelchair accessible. so they're
Yes,
huge.
yes, but the closets. I mean, I was even talking to my sister, she's 5 years older than me. She keeps telling me, you better find a nice place for me. I said, yeah, but you have a lot of clothes and you can't take all your clothes. Yes,
This place I looked at in Santa Rosa, I couldn't believe it. So high end, and it had walk-in closets. and
Wow.
all this other stuff. It's very nice. I mean, anybody would want to live there.
And
Yes.
what did it cost?
That was the place that had the 2 levels of entry, $1 million or the 200,000 or whatever it is.
At 25,000 a month.
It was not that much. A friend of mine lives there and pays around, he said, 8,000 a month.
that's
He's
not
been-
bad.
He's been there since the beginning, so he got
Grandfather.
breaks and stuff.
And I caution clients about the move-in specials. Because once the special's over, the rates go up. So you have to look at, well, what's the rate gonna be in 6 months, or we're getting towards the end of the year and now we're calling communities. So what's your 2024 rate gonna be?
Would you suggest if you find a couple of places, because so many are saying in 2 years, maybe you'll come in. maybe 3 years, something will be available. So you put your name on different places.
Yeah,
I remember with my father-in-law, we did get him in a very lovely place in Chicago. But maybe 5 years after, I would get notices, oh, he can move in now, so, yeah. It's tricky a little bit,
And a lot of the places you don't fall to the bottom, like, Villa Gardens, for instance. If they call you and you decide you're not ready yet, you don't fall to the bottom of the list.
No, it's the other way around.